Hi, everyone. I'm a product manager at Datadog working on notebooks, among other things. I'm just going to talk very quickly about what notebooks are for those of you who don't know. So it's a document-style product where you can mix live visualizations from your Datadog data and some deep text features. So it's kind of like a Google Doc where you can add those visualizations that you're used to adding to dashboards. We have lots of, a full suite of collaboration features, commenting, version history, you can tag your colleagues, and so on. The things that our customers do, Discover will talk to you about that in a minute, but the four main use cases that our customers use notebooks for are first, kind of as a scratch pad. You are investigating something, you're not sure what's going on, you may lay out hypotheses, writing text, add a few graphs, try to understand what's going on. The second one is postmortems. After a bug happened, after an incident happened, you write a clean doc that you'll be able to share with your execs, with your teams, and so on. Third one is weekly, monthly reporting. It's really good at that. We use that internally for that. And lastly, runbooks, teaching to others how to do something when they need it. Cool. That's pretty much it for me. Here's Kurt and Ankit from Discover. They'll talk to you how they use notebooks.
Thank you, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Schneider. This is Ankit Patel. We're going to talk about notebooks and talk a little bit about our company. I actually am the architect for observability at Discover. And I'll introduce what Ankit does here in a second. So who is Discover? You guys probably know us by our credit card, obviously. But we are 100% US-based customer service. We were recently acquired by Capital One, so we are a division of Capital One. It was like 3 weeks ago. We did bring like the first card to have cash rewards. And a funny story about this is I worked at Allstate when Discover came out, and they forced us. I was on third shift in the late 1980s, and they forced us to get a Discover card, and it didn't work anywhere. Now it works like 99% everywhere, so that's us, and I'm gonna get into what we're doing with notebooks. So why Datadog? About 4 or 5 years ago, we had about 12 monitoring products, and people were just moving between those products, and it was kind of, I feel it was hurting our MTTR. So a plan was put into place to go single suite. We had 2 APM tools, multiple metric tools for infrastructure. So we chose Datadog because we wanted to combine all those metrics in a single suite, okay? Why notebooks? Because notebooks are collaborative. They're basically a shared text editor, right? So we use those for a lot of different things, and Ankit's gonna give you a lot of examples. So our current Datadog use, just so you know, and we put a lot of these items into notebooks: cloud network monitoring, database monitoring, infrastructure, APM, real user monitoring, CI visibility, and data streams, and we have a lot of integrations installed. So a lot of that data we use in our notebooks for postmortems, for just getting links in there, and I'm gonna go through a couple examples. So using notebooks, really, our goal always is to reduce MTTR. So we've replaced 2 other products, APM products, with Datadog. We did it in 10 months last year, and we've reduced our tickets by 38%. We still get false failures around 45 percentile, but we were at about 90 percentile false failures. So we're still working on that. Notebooks offer us the ability to work inside the tool with collaboration, and then this collaboration reduces the time it takes to resolve issues because everybody sees what's going on at the same time. I want to talk about this for a second. It's what we consider blast radius. So you have a main application, you have upstream and downstream. That's one tier. At Discover, we really want to figure out, like, when I'm doing a change on this main application, what are my upstream and downstream, and what are those upstream and downstreams? And we want to go up like 4 tiers to tell people, hey, if this app goes down, you could affect something 4 tiers away. So we have started working on that. We have a lot of work that we've done getting data out of Datadog, and Datadog themselves is actually working on a piece that's going to have a lot of this inside the GUI. But we have this notebook here. It's just an example that we have Lean IX links, which gives us portfolio context. We link to service pages in Datadog. We link to the traces for upstream and downstream, including inferred services. We have a little graph in there that shows us like 4 levels deep. Flow map, infra view, and then one of the things that wasn't on there is we actually can link to ServiceNow. This is an example of payments DB overview. The person that wrote this said that it's our go-to. We dive into every incident, every learning moment. It's fast, intuitive, loves how we instantly can pool any graph or metric. This has got database latency, mobile payment latency, so it's got some RUM data in here, web payment latency as well. This one is a traffic flick monitoring one. They have traffic breakdown, so this is using cloud network. On-prem versus OCP, business error codes charting, latency, error streams. And then this one here is a possible bot attack. This was a way for them to pull together specific views to look at specific aspects of an application, and they can tell that they're having a bot attack potentially by looking at this notebook. And then they can keep track historically on when those bot attacks happened. So Datadog Notebooks. The benefits are, it's data-driven, it's collaborative, it's standardized, it's programmatic. So we're working on something to actually touch those from ServiceNow through orchestration, versioning, enhanced navigation, dynamic visuals, and accessible sharing. Use cases, scheduled maintenance, postmortems, incident management, investigations, application overviews, and just a way to have quick links, right? If you have something you want to share with somebody, like an engineer. And then I'm going to turn over to Ankit. He runs the digital SRE team, and they have over 400,000 logons per hour, and he supports quite a few of our critical applications.
Thank you, Kurt. As Kurt suggested, one of the critical use cases that we have established using notebooks is through our incident lifecycle, postmortems and stuff. What we support is, as Kurt said, the mobile platform for Discover, where a customer comes in to self-service themselves. On top of our call center, mobile also is one of our most recognized products from Discover for its user interface. Also, I support the website for both the business channels, credit card as well as bank, which is where we heavily rely on Datadog and the notebook feature, right? So let me dive into this slide. How many of you here has recently worked on an incident? Great, perfect.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. That's what I thought. So this is the boring incident lifecycle diagram, nothing surprising. I just Googled it and got it, right? An incident basically starts when there is an abnormality in your system. That, in our case, triggers an event from, it could be any source. In our case, it's Datadog. It goes to either it's a non-event or not a customer impacting outage or actual outage, which then matures into an outage call, post-incident, et cetera, and then we go through a circle. Hopefully, we learn from it as it suggests here. So pre-Datadog Notebooks, what we did was we had a process that was very manual. All of these phases happened in silos, and after the outage, we would have one person collating all the data and putting together either a OneNote or a Word doc. And then we would use that to host a meeting, which is, in our case, it's called a PIR, post-incident review. It's just a postmortem, right? Fancy way to say it. A lot of time was invested there in documenting, getting to know what happened. By the time we learn it, the outage details sometimes also disappeared from our old tool. Right. Or the data shrank. It did not give the opportunity for multiple people to collaborate at the same time or from the get-go on all the life cycle stages of the incident. And then because you have a boring black and white text, or now that we have dark mode in Word, it could be a black document, and it just, it's not a data-rich meeting. It's just boring. And then lastly, because there was no data or there was no metrics in the document as much as there were metrics, but it was not backed by a tool it was just a copy paste, we had often what we call heated discussions, back and forth. Why do you say that? You didn't say that on the outage call, but now you're saying that, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did is, here's the slide again. We inserted Datadog into our lifecycle. From the inception of the incident, which is through the event phase, the first touch, whenever the first touch happens, we made sure that that person, that engineer, starts the notebook from an event lifecycle. And if the event is non-impacting, we could just close it and call it a day. But if it goes forward, then we matured into an incident outage lifecycle or notebook and keep adding to it. This helped us to have better discussions on all the phases of lifecycle. What you see here is an example of how our first-level engineers are using event notebooks for every event that happens. They'll just go in as per the runbook and create an investigative notebook. It could just be just one graph that led to that event and then close it out, that it was just a brief spike. I see that often, and then just close it. In the other case, it could be that they matured into an actual outage notebook because there was customer impact. The spike never came down. And then this here is all of my engineers, part of the digital SRE team that picked up from the level 1 engineering team and created an outage-driven notebook that we can use all the way through the postmortem process.
And you guys will connect those notebooks that are repetitive, right?
Yes, they're all connected.
Yeah.
And then what we did that's not mentioned here is that all the data now, because of adoption of Datadog, we implemented metric-driven reporting, and then we brought that into Datadog. So here's another example of how we use, or here's a in detail example of how we use Notebook. We have a template that we forked from Datadog, which helps us create a blameless environment. And we don't try to ask the questions of which human caused it or why we caused it. Rather, this is the system that caused the issue, and here's the data to show you. So going back to my original slide when we had blameless discussions or blameful discussions, now, because there is data to back it up, there is no need to say, well, you didn't say this on the outage call. Here's the data to show you, and it's graphically represented. So what changed? All we did is wherever you see an interesting point that can help you do a better investigation, we started just clicking that button. It's just the share button, right? And save to Notebook. The other thing that happened is because of this process, not just our team, but also the centralized incident and event management team at the company, which is, in our case, it's the command center, they started collaborating with us. And they came in and added, they now come in and add what details they need to start the call or how they started the call in the first place, right? What they saw, et cetera. This leads to in-depth discussions with the data, as you saw in the previous slide, with defined metrics of exactly what the customer was impacted, what and why. It's a much better streamlined approach, again, because we have the event notebooks matured into the incident notebooks, outage notebooks, and so on and so forth, right? So we just have easy way to collaborate. Again, the example that I gave earlier, it's collaborative, not only our internal team, but the product engineers, et cetera, can also come in and see the data that we have. So the use case there is we go every week to the product team, and they already have reviewed our notebooks and comment on it. And lastly, the best part is now our meetings are not boring because we have the data. Everyone reviews it ahead of time. Instead of looking at a plain OneNote template that we used to use, now we have interactive graphs, colorful graphs from Datadog that we use actually, or metrics. And then lastly, the point that I touched on, it helped us become blameless. And because again, we used the Datadog Notebook template that they have.
They stopped being defensive.
Yes. Yeah. So this has improved our technical investigation process, and the conversations are just more technical versus before it was, okay, this is the root cause, this is what we're going to do, versus we go in depth and talk about what we need to improve with the data points that we learn and share through the notebook process, right? Or the postmortem process. It's all aligned, the data is verifiable, and lastly, our customers, the product engineers, appreciate the notebook approach. Before they would ask for, where do you see this, can you show it to me? Now they just ask for the notebook. In fact, some of them, they started picking up the notebook style and they use it for their processes internally. Blameless conversation again, and everything is data-driven. What is the feedback that we've been getting from our customers and the users that are part of the larger postmortem and incident management lifecycle around our products, right? The first one here is from Larry. He's our principal problem management at the centralized command center team, or centralized problem management team. We are high volume, as I said earlier, 4,000 logins, 400K logins an hour during our busy peak period, which is Friday every day, or every Friday, because everyone wants to make their payment after a payday, right? And since we have a lot of outages or events that we deal with, they come in, they rely on our data instead of us going back and forth. So it made it easy for them to consume our input into their problem management process. This is one of our engineers, Brett. He is giving a specific example of how Datadog has enabled our team to interactively tell a story and share root cause analysis with our partner product teams with real-time graphs, images, and text, increasing collaboration and reducing MTTR. So he was dealing with a specific problem where there was database cache issues, and he dove into the DB2 versus Oracle execution time and showed them the exact schema that they need to fix it in, and that's how he uses Datadog Notebook within the SRE space. And then the last one is from Jay. He's our senior manager for the incident management team. This is verbatim from him. It says, Command Center uses Copilot to summarize what occurred during the production call. So everything that gets said on the call gets recorded. Now, anything the Copilot, which is what we use to record, provides us as hearsay when we are reviewing it as part of postmortem, as it does often capture all the names. We can back up and confirm the claims by data, which is captured in one place, which is the Datadog Notebook. He often led into the problem that I stated earlier. During the outage, you said XYZ was impacted, but everyone wants to preserve their SLAs, right? So then it changes, the story changes, but now we have data through the notebook process that we've implemented. And this has helped them, which is why they start collaborating in the notebook phase. Other uses that we've done, just like what Kurt touched upon in his blast radius and all the use cases that he touched on, we are also using it. I think Jonathan also touched on one of the use cases. We use it for customer journey performance reviews, both monthly and journey. So what is a customer journey to us? A customer journey is login, customer making a payment, statements, viewing statements, et cetera. And we collate all the data from APM, from RUM, from BRUM, whatever the case may be, and then put it all together. We have a template now, and every month, we want to go talk to our product partners or our business partners who just use that notebook, and everyone appreciates it. In fact, one of our business POs was so impressed that she actually got access to Datadog, which was one of the first times that I've heard a business person log in. This is just post-infra changes and code changes. So whenever there is a major outage, or sorry, major infrastructure change, we will use Notebook to say, this is the day that we implemented the large change, and that's where we're seeing the observation and learnings. And lastly, we also use it for our weekly chaos test that we do, and then we just dump all the learnings into a notebook.
I just want to say one thing, Ankit. I didn't mention it. We have over 2,500 people that log into Datadog a week, so it is becoming our central hub for data and for validating that data.
So enough about how and what we do. This is the one thing that I can suggest to do to start using notebooks, which is just clicking that start button. It doesn't have to be structured. It doesn't have to be for a process. Just start clicking that save to notebook, and you will start realizing how, and you will get ideas of how and where to use it. This is just an example of how we use it. Save to notebook and go to the existing outage notebook that we have. So what are our next steps? We have 7 other SRE teams within my org. We want to influence them to start using notebooks for their postmortems as well and for their incident lifecycle. The larger Discover SRE organization, which sits under the customer success org, we want to influence and partner with them. We're actually doing that next week. We have a Dash at Discover event coming up next week. We're going to showcase the same thing there and influence them to use Datadog Notebooks for the larger enterprise. And then use the standardized template, which can be used for the whole company versus just my team or our team. And it's going to help us break knowledge silos by utilizing collaborative notebooks. The one thing that I learned from the keynote is that I'm looking forward to the Bits AI piece, Sheets collaboration inside the notebooks. I think it will make it even more interesting for us to start using notebooks in an expanded fashion. And then we'll go back to our company slides, which is.
So we have like a pretty good engineering culture. Small teams, projects that impact consumers. And if you go to the next slide, if you want to learn more about our technology, here's the QR code, and it'll tell you all about how we run our technology. We have a DTA site. It's got
technology
thousands and thousands of articles on it, and you can go see more there if you're interested. And I think we have a video that Datadog's providing about what's coming.
Yeah, we'll turn it back to Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm sure that's been really helpful for everybody here. That was certainly very helpful for me as a product manager to see how all the ways that you use notebooks. That was great. Talking about ways to use notebooks, we kind of have a brand new set of use cases that I'm going to talk about now beyond postmortem, beyond weekly reporting and monthly reporting. It's about, can you just pause for a sec? I don't know who controls it. Cool. Yeah, so sometimes the data you have in Datadog, the way it's structured, is not good enough to let you get to an answer to a question that you have. Maybe you have an ID in a log message that you need to extract and get out of the message and make it an attribute. Maybe you need to join 2 sets of logs or a set of logs with some metrics data or something like that. Historically, you didn't really have a solution to solve those problems in Datadog unless, changing your logs pipeline or something like that. And so you needed to get out of Datadog and have to manage stale data and spreadsheets and maybe a Jupyter notebook, maybe a BI tool or something like that. So we have a brand new set of features that enable you to do advanced analysis. You can define a data source in your notebook and then chain queries on top of that data source, whether it's a set of preset data transformations or SQL. If we can start the video. So for example, let's say that we want to identify a set of transactions that failed and understand how much money we lost. So we'll start by your first logs data source from the trading platform service that you can see here. And we'll just add a few attributes. So we'll get the customer ID and the value of that log. Now, the problem is on that set of logs, we don't know if it errored out or not. So we'll have to get a second set of logs where we'll see whether the transaction was a success or not. So that's what we're doing here. And the problem is in those logs, we actually don't have the value of the transaction. which is why we created the first data source, and a little bit later we'll join those two sets of data. All right, so here I'm just adding a customer ID. Cool. Another thing is we actually have a transaction ID in the logs message that we want to extract. So we'll add here a transformation cell where, as you can see, we have a few different data transformation. Here we'll parse, and this uses grok parsing. So here, as you can see, I'm extracting the transaction ID, and it becomes a new column. We're going to do it a second time to extract another data from the logs message. Cool. Now, as I said earlier, we're going to join those two sets of data. So we can create a SQL cell where you have all the power and flexibility of SQL. There we go. I'm not going to go through the whole query. It's a little bit of a hairy query, but that gives us our list of errored transactions. And then you can add a visualization cell on top of that and visualize it with all the ways we have in Datadog to visualize data. And finally, you can export that to a dashboard if that's what you want to do, or if it's just you want a CSV to share with your customer service team or other teams, you can do that as well. This is currently in preview. This will be generally available in the next 2 months. If you want to have access, feel free to ask me directly or ask your CSM. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. I think we've got a few minutes for questions. So if you do have questions, I guess for all three folks up here, make your way to that microphone in the center aisle.
Hi. Firstly, thanks for a really interesting presentation on the use of notebooks. Just wondering, how does this intersect with incident management, and why you didn't use incident management for tracking your issues?
We still use incident management. We take the data from here and just provide a link to ServiceNow. That's our platform of choice for service management. But the engineers prefer Datadog Notebooks over going into ServiceNow and updating the data. It's just more familiar to them. They feel at home with Datadog is how I would answer it. And then the service management will pick up the data from Datadog and enter it into ServiceNow.
Okay, so it's more just that your incident management is
Yeah.
ServiceNow rather.
Yeah.
It's closer to the data,
Yeah.
right? So the engineers like it.
Thank you. And it sounds like there's a lot of ClickOps when it comes to creation of notebooks and usage of notebooks. Is there any automated Git managed notebooks? We have a heavy Confluence usage at Atlassian, and the migration to ServiceNow is taking longer. But getting people away from Confluence will not be easy. So do you have something in mind where a notebook that is managed through Git?
You can update them through the API. We've tested that. We're going to use ServiceNow orchestration to push some things automatically.
But it's mostly first responders that use notebooks? Yeah. Okay, boots on the ground.
Yeah, it's more the engineering staff, right? So.
Okay, thank you.
This is a great demo, thanks. Couple of questions, and I'll probably take some separately with you offline.
That's fine.
So if the default is save to notebook, my experience is it just dumps it right at the bottom, and if you have a bunch of concurrent users in there, it's probably going to create a bunch of noise. I did see you have the headings based on the navigation pop out, so I'm assuming someone's going in there to kind of do cleanup as you go. Do you find that you're just doing the drag and drop to sort of set things under those headings? And like how is that chaos manageable in the middle of doing an incident?
No, in the middle, everyone just appends at the end because that's not the time well spent in the middle of the incident. but during the post-mortem phase is when we clean up. We have time for that. I'd rather just do cleanup activity versus actually collating the data in a Word doc. I just have to click and drag, right, which is much easier than doing what we were doing previously. So we take that. We still will iterate and make it better, but this is where we are. And then I think to answer your first question, only the first person has to create the notebook. Then we share it through we use Teams. We just say this is the notebook, or people just know because everyone's on that call, and just start dumping it into that notebook that's already created. It comes in handy a lot during a large outage, to be honest.
Right, that makes sense. And then the follow-up question, so there's a lot of similarity between dashboards and notebooks to the point where you can send to dashboard as well. I know you mentioned you have a template that you managed to start sort of a skeleton of one of these. Are you finding that there are certain types of panels that you're exporting on the regular that you create in that template where you've already pre-filled most of it and now you're just picking maybe a template variable for a service or picking the date range more current? And then also, related, do you find that there's common metrics or widgets of interest that make sense to actually put in a dashboard to do something like, this should be an SLO?
Not there yet. No, we don't go there yet, but for the notebook, we have, usually we go after either the volume drop, latency, or errors. That's the metric that we will start with, and then we go a level deeper to understand why that is, if it's 2 service down, 5 service down, or an infrastructure. That's how we do it. We haven't exported anything to my knowledge. I could be wrong because I don't.
Your team, though, has got a lot of apps.
Yes, we already have.
They have a lot of our banking apps.
Yeah, we have like 420
And we have other
components.
teams that actually do have dashboards with variables, and they use those
Yes.
for postmortem. So, I mean, it's probably, I would think that there's probably more users that are using the dashboards right now, but they are getting used to notebooks.
We use
Because notebooks are more collaborative, right? And you can put things in there from time periods, whereas a dashboard, you'd have to change it all the time, and it's stacked, and sometimes the dashboard doesn't necessarily get down to the exact metric that you're looking for that outage. So I think there's a good use case for both. I think dashboards, a lot of times, they go there initially to see if they see any drop-off or anything, and then they might go and make a postmortem notebook.
We have updated a dashboard post to postmortem and added a new metric that we learned. I don't know if that was in the notebook and we actually said add to dashboard. We learned but I don't want to attribute to the notebook use case. It's just that we learned from the incident that, hey, now we should monitor a latency to this endpoint, and then just added it to our existing larger dashboard.
I mean, a good way to look at it is dashboard is overall health of the service, right? Mm-hmm. And then notebooks are more like what happened at that time period.
Hi. Building on top of the dashboard, saving a chart to a notebook versus dashboard. I like the notebooks are great canvas to experiment, especially trying to navigate like so many metrics that we have now. Logs are going to be available in notebooks too, which is really exciting. Jonathan, can you tell us about like Bits AI, like how that can act as like, it's almost like a notebook is the collaborative canvas with the AI. And I'm just like free flow asking like, hey, I don't know where the metrics are, but this is the question I'm curious about, like both picking up the like right metrics. And then most of the time what I do is just clone a chart to just like visualize differently the same metric or the filtered version of it, just to start building up like same concept in different angles. And I think like Bits AI could do that like much quicker. Is that something you guys are working on?
Yes. One quick follow-up question on what you said on the last piece about I'm just cloning the same graph to maybe group by another dimension or something like that. Are you familiar with the split graph feature? Mm-hmm. Is that helpful in any way for that use case? Or?
Sometimes.
Can you tell me more? Sorry,
because it's not just the same metric, like exact same filter. Sometimes we just break it down differently, or sometimes we change the property of a metric. Like often, like what is the behavior for this cluster of customers versus this, and that is not like represented in a metric attribute. It's just like on top of our head, like contextually we know
Okay.
these are the large customers versus these are the small customers. Compare them.
Got it. To answer the other part of the question about BTI, we're investing heavily in AI, as I'm sure you've seen yesterday during the keynote. Specifically on this problem, I probably should have showed you that today. We do have a feature that's very early where what I've showed with the kind of multi-step querying, the SQL and so on, where instead of having to do that yourself, you'll be able to ask a prompt, and Bits will do it for you.
Awesome.
We'll try to get this in preview in the next few months.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I did have one last question. So I know there's a new, recently new feature with notebooks that you can finally upload images, and you can get sort of capture snapshots so that when your data retention rolls off, you still have that little image of the thing that happened a month ago. Are you finding use cases in your now thankfully not boring post-incident review meetings where somebody says, God, this reminds me of this thing that happened to this other service, like I got this gut feeling. Do you look over notebook to notebook to find broader patterns?
Not yet, no. We look at, for patterns, trends and analysis, we go to ServiceNow, and then we'll just use native Datadog dashboards that we have. We don't use notebooks in that manner yet, but
But
that's a good use case.
you would link a notebook if you thought it was similar
Yes.
to a previous incident, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It
they
would
do
be
link.
there, but
Yeah.
it's not collated into one
Yeah.
notebook. But that's a good idea. Thank you.
I will just say about the snapshotting part too, that you don't have to actually take a screenshot and then paste it. You have a snapshotting feature in notebooks. Sounds like you know.
Yeah, it's
Right. I
pretty
want to
handy.
say there's some toggle that says allow the capture of this screenshot in your notebook, right? Like the retain the image,
Yes.
of
Yeah.
the data
Yeah,
that's showing
that's
out.
what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. We can probably make that feature more visible and probably better in many ways.
So no more questions?
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.